All right, welcome to the show, Brian. How does it feel to be Brian today?
I was doing great, Brett. It's always great being me. Wouldn't want to be anybody else. Got back from Belize on my honeymoon, so just
Oh,
enjoying
wow.
the tan while I still can. Yeah, so I never actually thought I'd practice law, which is the weird thing. Like I was an injured athlete in college, and thought I was gonna be playing professional baseball, and then blew out my arm pitching, and my mom was like, "You should try going to law school." I'm like, "Dude, I want to go to the Navy SEALs and blow things up and jump out of airplanes." And my mom's like, "But you're really good with logic and philosophy. Like, why don't you try going to law school?" So I was like, "All right, I'll give it a year," and just fell in love with law. And was working at the DA's office, and the economy crashed in 08, 09. And I was like the first one hired, and they're like, "Hey, we have no money for anybody right now. So like, you're the youngest one here. You're the first one fired." Went in from like criminal law to civil law. Economy tanked in civil law, and same thing. I was working at like a chop shop law firm doing plaintiff work, and they're like, "Hey, we got to let you go." And even though you're the only one closing cases for us, like you gotta, we gotta pay the bills, and you gotta go. Yeah, I would say like one thing is realize I get this call a lot. Like they listen to like your show here and like, "Brian, I listened to you and I don't want to pay taxes. I want asset protection." And I'm gonna be like, "Hey, sorry, that's not asset protection.
Yeah, two
Go
different
talk to
things there.
go
Yeah.
talk to your CPA and tax, wealth manager. That's called tax mitigation. But we can create the systems that protect you from lawsuits. But if we start incorporating tax strategies in the asset protection structure, that's when they actually don't work. We start having to give up on control. The IRS will look at it as fraudulent and pierce it because you're trying to create it to hinder or avoid paying taxes. So we got to realize they're oil and water. Number one, right? Number two, do it beforehand. Do it before you're getting sued, before you're even foreseeable that you're getting sued. And there's a lot of case law on that to where, "Oh, I hit somebody with my car. I'm not in a lawsuit yet, so let's set up the asset protection plan." No, it's foreseeable. You hit somebody with your car, it's likely you're going to get sued now. So when you're not under attack, it's not even foreseeable that your castle is being attacked, is the time that we set this up. And then you want to layer the system out. To answer the question is like base layer LLCs when we're starting out to put risky assets like real estate in. Those will flow up into management companies. Some people use Wyoming LLCs. We prefer limited partnerships. And then when you're like, let's say a doctor and you have real estate, just like good exposure, high risk, that's when the big guns come in, like the asset protection trust and the bridge trust. So you layer the system out, and you don't have to do it all at once. You can scale and grow with it. I would say start where you're at. If you're just starting out with one or two properties, get an LLC and insurance. You start growing, management company comes in, you get to that $1 million exposed net worth, maybe four properties, investing in different states, or you're a high risk professional, doctor, lawyer, CPA, something like that. That's when the trust is really relevant. So when we're scaling out our system, right, I always want people to think about it through like winter and clothing. Like we layer ourselves out when we go out skiing on a cold winter day. Same thing with our asset protection plan. The base layer, level one LLCs. We need a little bit more. That's going to be our sweater, which will be management companies. It's really bad weather outside, cold winter day. Snow jacket goes on top of that, right? That's your asset protection trust. Now, asset protection trust, not all trusts are the same, right? We think about it like ice cream, 31 flavors, different shapes and flavors for everybody. Your revocable living trust can't protect you. They're not designed to, just good for probate when you die, medical directives, financial directives. Then we get into asset protection trust. And this is where there's two routes. You can create them offshore exclusively in the Cook Islands called, offshore foreign asset protection trust, or domestically. The pro of offshore is it's the strongest thing in the world. No one's ever going to argue against it. The issue with it is they're expensive to create. About $50,000 to create properly, and then the maintenance is a lot of IRS disclosures, FACTA disclosures. They're just really expensive to maintain. Then the other option is, all right, I don't need the offshore trust. That's way overkill. I'm going to do it domestically. The issue with the domestic is they're just not effective. There's just so much case law piercing the purely domestic ones like In re Hubbard, 𝗘𝗀𝘁 versus Stillman, just a lot of bad case law on them. And the reason people were doing them is they're just cheaper and there's no tax filings on them. So real estate's special, and it's not like other assets. Like you can't move a building and protect it. Like the building is stationary. So what are we protecting when it comes to real estate? This is why it's unique, is the equity value in it. And so there's only two ways that you can protect real estate, and that's getting the equity either out of it or selling the property. There's no other way that you can do it. And so the easiest and cleanest way to do it would just be like, all right, we're breaking the bridge. Let's just sell everything, protect the equity, protect the money. When the lawsuit goes away, go and reinvest. Most clients will do that. Some clients just fall in love with a specific property and they're saying, no, I love this, like sentimental reasons. The only other option in that case is to do what's called equity stripping or a friendly lien. I don't like that because courts don't recognize it. And it essentially is just fraud because it's a non-fair market value lien that you're doing for yourself, even if you go run up and use like another LLC that you create. So courts just don't like it. But the only way it works is if you have the offshore system in place to put the money and the equity in so a judge can't get access to it. And that's where a lot of people go wrong, is you hear some people say, well, let's just create an LLC and then equity strip it and then put the money like in a domestic bank account and put a lien on top of it. Well, the issue with that is it's all domestic. A judge can still just pierce through it and say this is complete fraud, which it is, and then you're back at square one, right? And then you're going to be held in civil contempt of court. So the only way for that to work would you have to put the money that you're stripping the equity out of, right, into somewhere where a judge can't get access to it, which means it has to be in a jurisdiction that a judge has no control or reach to, which would be like a Swiss bank account or an offshore Cook Island trust. Yeah, like I really like insurance. There's different levels of it. I think that when we're talking about life insurance, I think the best place to start is just like, what is the difference between term and permanent life insurance? And then that naturally just drifts into index plans. So if we're just talking at the beginning, right, like term life insurance is what its name says it is. It's set for a fixed duration, right? Like 10 years. Let's just say that as an example, random number. You pay your premiums and at the end of the term, its coverage is over and you don't generate any cash value built up in it. So it's just, you're not generating any wealth. You can't benefit or use term life insurance while you're actually alive. So it's just there for catastrophic events for that specific period of time. And then that's it. And this actually happened to me out of law school. I got and paid for term life insurance through the California State Bar when I was coming out. And I paid into that. And then the term ended and all my premium payments, that I paid over the years were just gone with it. So I really didn't benefit it, from it at all.
Because you didn't die.
Correct. Exactly. Thank God. Right. So whole life insurance, especially if you're an index, especially if you're, investors and looking for like real estate and how to become your own bank, is completely different. So whole life insurance and index life insurance, and I actually use index insurance for myself and set them up for my kids as well, which I'll break down, later. But it's a version of permanent life insurance policies, and they're different from term life insurance in that they don't end after a specified duration of time. Number one, I would tell people, if your eyes are glossing over on this, you should like the tax code, because the tax code has a very small number of pages telling you how much money you owe and a very large amount of pages telling you how to make more money. So you should look at it as a treasure map and find a CPA and wealth manager that sees it and utilizes it as a treasure map, because it's going to tell you where to invest your money to make a lot of money. And so that's number one, just get your team properly in place. The way we go about structuring all these things together, one, I say we got to protect your assets, because if you get sued, you have nothing to generate wealth over. So we want to protect them at whatever level you're at. And then the second one is we're looking at what stage you're at. So I'm just going to use somebody that's in like their 40s, because we can kind of touch upon quickly like how to cover everything. So let's say you're in your 40s, you've had a couple jobs, you have like a 401k. At that point, you have some cash, you have your home, and you have maybe one or two investment properties, right? And we want to accelerate things. So we're looking at that end of the day, like IULs, like the index life insurance. And then we're looking at rollovers. So generally you can take part of, like, let's say you have 500,000 in a 401k, or a space over a couple. I would take one of them, maybe 100 grand, roll it over into an annuity, because that's going to pay you and grow tax deferred and then pay you out for life once you get past retirement. So we can't look at my retirement date is when I turn, 67. That's what everybody looks at. I'm going to retire at 66, 67, but they don't think about post-retirement years. What happens 10 years down the line when you have no more money? While we're investing in real estate, we got to start also think about what else are we going to be doing for ourselves down the line. Protect the real estate, protect ourselves from lawsuits and liability. Now, how are we going to take care and pay our bills when we're older, which is, IULs, long-term care riders, annuities, none of the sexy stuff that people want to talk about, but that's what's going to make us live very nice, happy, comfortable, healthy lives when we're, 70, 80, 90.